More so than we imagine, that is, what we term fiction. Below the surface of the water, in the shade of the forest, and in the distant depths of the past, we shall find beings which the science of today cannot explain. We bring back to you 12 creatures, all of whom contradict our concept of the world. The first mythological creature that we are to discuss is the werewolf, which is a human being turning into a wolf. These narratives have captured the interest of people over the centuries. It is said that a werewolf becomes a werewolf when a full moon is present. The body grows tall, becomes more powerful, grows hair, and the eyes begin to shine at night. They do not go out of their mind and behave like animals, hunting, hiding, growling, etc. Certain myths indicate that curse is spread by means of a bite, a disease. An example of one of the first stories is in ancient Greece of how King Lion was changed into a wolf by Zeus himself. During the medieval time, the werewolf fear was converted into a hysteria, particularly in France and Germany, where individuals were tried and convicted of wolf murder. This is an interesting fact. In others, the individual does not remember that he or she is a werewolf. They wake up in ripped clothes with grime under the nails and nightmares of the horrors and no knowledge as to what happened to them that night. Are they true? Nay, science says no. However, there is a rare psychological disorder known as clinical lyanthropy, where a human being feels like he or she has turned into a beast. The second one came out of internet debates, the giant mutant whale. In contrast to the ancient myths, the idea is based on the unconfirmed reports of sailors, unexplained acoustic signals in the ocean reported by hydrophones, and the deep ocean observation data. The notion became popular on cryptozoology discussion groups in the early 2000s following the release of the Julia sound recorded by NOAA in 1997. This mythical whale would be substantially larger than any other whale at that time, at up to 130 to 165 feet, and with disproportionate anatomy, abnormal behavior, and low-frequency sounds which would not apply to known whales. Possible factors are radioactive pollution, deep-sea chemical pollution, or evolutionary drift in exceptional high-pressure habitats. This Julia sound had a duration lasting approximately 15 s, and a variety of hydrophones recorded it within a distance of almost 3,000 m. Its acoustic signature was quite intense and deep to be able to come up with known biological sources such as blue whales. The source of the signal was identified at a region close to Antarctic Plateau, which also happens to be one of the least traveled regions of the ocean. Similar unidentified sounds such as the upsweep and slow down have also been identified in the adjacent areas since the year 1997. Other scientists have held that they could be the result of unidentified massive sea creatures that could withstand high pressure and pitch blackness. Is there really a giant mutant whale? It is still, at this point, just a theory. However, since more than 80% of the ocean is yet to be explored, most of the sounds heard in the ocean have not been given a scientific explanation. Of this being you have heard, I know, the Cyclops. A one-said giant towered and trembled at his brute force and piercing eyes. He is one of the Greek mythology icons. But what should he have been had his creation been absolutely fictitious? Cyclops are described as human giants that have only one eye placed in the middle of their forehead. They have their first appearance in Greek fables through the Odyssey by Homer, where Odysseus meets a bloodthirsty creature Polyphemus, who is an occupant of a cave which feeds on human beings. According to some of the legends, Cyclopes were the sons of Gaia and Uranus, who made the thunderbolts of Zeus. But science has a different theory. The archaeologists think that the myth might have been as a result of fossil skulls of dwarf elephants on Mediterranean island. A large cavity in the middle of these skulls is the nasal passage of a trunk. It may have resembled a huge eye socket to ancient people who had no idea what elephants were. Islands such as Crete, Sicily, and Malta, among other places, are particularly associated with Cyclops legends because of the islands where such fossils were found. Are there dragons as the Cyclopes are? Technically, no. And when ancient men supposed that dwarf elephants had skulls that looked like the skulls of one-eyed giants, and when their pictures were really those of the giants, then they may have seen again something real, though not what they thought they saw. The second animal is Vasuki Indicus, one of the strange mingling of mythology and science. On the one hand, Vasuki is some mythical snake of the Indian folklore. He was so huge that he was also used as a rope in the great battles between gods and demons. The other is an actual prehistoric sea monster found just recently. Marine reptile fossil remains in 2023. Gujarati scientists uncovered the 39 feet long remains of a marine reptile in India. It looked like a huge snake and it had powerful jaws and elongated streamlined shape. Its creature was given the nickname Vasuki Indicus in memory of the myth and in memory of the place of discovery. The animal died about 100 million years ago when the warm tropical seas had covered the Kutch region. The body shape the fossils exhibit is indication of it being a mosasaur or perhaps an unknown predator never recorded in history. Interestingly, massive snakes that were supposedly inhabiting nearby caves were already a legend told by local inhabitants. There were places which were avoided due to fear. It now appears that these myths could have an origins in the remote prehistoric reality. Nowadays Vasuki Indicus is just a reminder that sometimes science and legends intersect. The finding demonstrates that even craziest myths possibly contain some truth hibernating behind time in stone. This animal has been causing terror over the ages. Banshee is a ghostly creature of Irish folklore. She nor brings hurt, but not is heard that here she brings warning. It is said that her cry can be heard only by those who are about to have a loss soon. The Banshee is, in a numerous variety of descriptions, explained. And now a young woman with silver hair, and now an old figure in a cloak of color gray. She is almost always seen at night outside of a house where something bad is about to happen. She has a high, faraway voice that is so cold like the wind that brings a message of fear. The earliest records of Banshee can be traced back to 13th century. It is believed that every ancient Irish family had its Banshee and the Banshee foreshadowed potential doom. In earlier tales she has been the woman of the mounds, the supposed descendant of the old grave mounds. Banshee are mostly popular in the countryside of Ireland and Scotland. Some of the villagers still talk about mysterious cries at night. The Banshee is not entirely folklore. She has become the embodiment of nerves, panic and apprehension that something will go wrong. The image of her can be found in horror-oriented games, films, and books, not as a concrete entity, but as a metaphor. Is the Banshee real? It is not scientific. All of them may have a point, but as far as I can see, they are all trying to explain why this legend is still around. But when your heart skips a beat after hearing some weird noise at night, you too may see why this legend exists. This is one of the most enigmatic sea creatures ever in North America, Cadorosaurus. Over the last few decades, it has been described in the tales of fishermen, sailors, even the military. It has been sighted off the coast of British Columbia, and reports of sightings have been forth since the first time. Witnesses also describe Cadorosaurus as a serpentine animal, of eel-like shape with very long projecting fins and having a head that is like that of a horse. The size of its estimates was 16 to 50 feet. Others state that it travels with a wavy motion like a sea serpent. What is so interesting here is the duration and the area it was recorded in. These are sightings that have taken place in the early 20th century to the recent past. People say they even found some parts of the beast itself, but there is no photo that proved to be a real thing. Some almost inaudible videos on fishing boats depict a snake-like movement on the surface. It is the most frequented sightings area around the inlets and the straits around Vancouver Island. Trips continue to be there with an aim of capturing new evidence. In 1937, a dead whale is said to have had visible the remains of a creature that looked similar to Cadorosaurus in its stomach. This specimen of Naden was examined by zoologists, briefly, then it just vanished. Is there such a thing as Cadorosaurus? Nobody has actually verified or falsified it as of yet, but then no one has been able to prove it conclusively wrong either, and the depths of the Pacific still conceal a lot of mysteries. Lots of folks have asked us to say something about this creature, this Moth Man. For some reason, it gained legend status over a spate of reports of mysterious sightings in the late 60s in the US. According to witnesses, it was a huge winged shadow having red shining eyes and the figure of a human. Moth Man is a creature, which was described as standing between 6 to 7 feet tall, and its wings were about 10 feet. It has the shape of a combination of a man and a giant moth. It is bare of feathers and fur, and is smooth, with dark skin or the appearance of a kit. The most frightening is usually the glowing red eyes. Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966 was the first major wave. It is alleged that Moth Man ran after vehicles, flew straight up, and hovered over bridges. The same year, the Silver Bridge collapsed and a lot of people attributed the tragedy to the creature. Point Pleasant is currently regarded to as the home of Moth Man, and it has gone as far as dedicating a statue to him in the town. There is an annual festival held in his honor. Funny detail, it is not everyone who reckons that Moth Man is not a monster, but a precursor of catastrophe. People are reported to have seen him prior to blasts and crashes. Is there such a creature as Moth Man? It has no scientific evidence, but the American culture absorbed the legend. Well, maybe it is mass hysteria, or maybe it is something which still we do not understand. The Mosasaurus is one of the most frightening animals in this video, as it was a huge sea monster that could be as long as 56 feet. Its shape was like a horrible combination of a snake, crocodile, and a lizard. It possessed a huge head, conical teeth, and long tail which enabled it to travel rapidly on water. The observations of sea monsters that resemble the Mosasaurus have been recorded all over the world, including New Zealand and North Atlantic. Long finned bodies, violent behavior, and weird sounds that reverberate to the depths have been witnessed by witnesses. These animals are all too frequently quite too huge to be normal whales or sharks. There are some theorists that attribute these sightings to the living fossils. Why is it any different when it comes to a mosasaur having to have a hiding place to hide in the deep sea according to them? Although scientists do not believe that it is highly possible, this is not what we can by all means rule out. Most of the sea floor has yet to be investigated, and there is a lot of opportunity to be surprised. Were there mosasaurs? Yes, and they were real ancient marine reptiles, that existed long before millions of years ago. Unless, of course, there is still a descendant lurking in the depths, and it will tell us perhaps more than we suppose. It is a folklife of New Zealand. It is called Tani Fa. It is the Maori culture, a people that have been living by the sea over the centuries. Tani Fa are very large water monsters and are serpent-like or crocodilian or ridged and finned. There are those that hug humans, drag boats, and trespassers way below surface. Tani Fa was said to shape the bays, cut the paths of rivers, and defend the villages. There is a well-known story that goes, a Tani Fa excavated Wellington Harbor in order to rescue a tribe under the drought conditions. To this day, people living around sea caves and deep ocean trenches talk of giant underwater shadows, odd sounds, and unexplained losses of boats. Are there such beasts called Tani Fa? No. Scientifically, such CR teachers are out of the biological, not to mention the archaeological record. However, they are not only a myth. Tani Fa are the symbols of fear, power, and wild sea in Maori tradition. And there was something substantial, too, that gave life to these old fancies. The second monster on our list is Bargist, a vision of a spectral dog with horror characteristics of northern England. It is usually linked with Yorkshire and Northumberland, and it is depicted as a huge black hound with burning red eyes and smoky wavering fur. Its shoulders are as tall as almost 5 feet and its body length is above 6.5 feet. It comes and goes without making any sound. Some of the more well-known sightings include the ones in Yorkshire at graveyards, bridges, or where there is foggy woodlands. Witnesses report pounding feet and harsh growling and an instant freeze. Other legends go so far as to show ghostly chains being pulled behind it or a shadowy mist around it. In some unusual versions, the Bargist has wings or a forked tail, putting a bit of supernatural touch to every tale. The Bargist has been used to inspire video games characters, novels, and scary tales in the contemporary culture. Others took it to be a source of fear, sorrow, or loneliness. Is the Bargist real? No. It is a sheer folkloric figure having no scientifically viable ground upon it. However, the fact that it has been frightening people throughout several centuries is evidence of the power that the legend can have. It was what you wanted, and what you wanted. And now out of the farthest fastnesses of the legend, the Leviathan. It is a sea monster that is as big as 300 feet or more. It has scales thick on its body which no weapon can penetrate. It is said to breathe fire or steam, and wind itself in and about vessels and draws them down in the depths. This concept of the Leviathan appears in the Old Testament and refers to disorderliness and invincible force. It can further be described as a dragon, a sea serpent, or even a satanic power by other sources. According to certain myths, the Leviathan cannot be described as a simply creature. It is personification of the abyss itself. It is considered to live in the farthest corners of the ocean, where people cannot get. There are several cultures that possess the Leviathans. Jormungandr of the Norse mythology. The Sumerian myths of Tiamat. The Leviathan of religious writings of the Middle Ages was a demon that fed on sinners. People were intimidated to repent by using his image. At times, he was depicted as having 7 heads, which was to imply that there are many faces of evil. During the previous decades, Leviathan has found its way to symbols of the horror films and video games. The theory of deep-sea monsters even today is more likely to refer to this legendary monster when they make mention of unknown giants living in the Pacific Ocean. Was Leviathan? Probably not, but still its legend continues to live. Frightening, amazing, and absolutely interesting. Narwhal is our last animal, a mythical sea creature. Narwhals are also referred to as the unicorn of the sea since they have long spiral tusk, which grows up to 10 feet long and looks like a magical horn. Narwhals inhabit the cool water of the Arctic around Canada and Greenland. They can reach a length of 16 feet and weigh approximately 3,000 pounds. Males can grow the tusk that is, in fact, a long left canine tooth. It is still unknown what its use was. It can be employed during sensing of water changes, its superiority, or even echolocation. Interestingly, in the Middle Ages, people thought of narwhals as a mythological animal. Their tusks were bought as unicorn horns in a great price, and even higher in value than gold. These horns were decorative items in royal crowns and thus placed as material treasures. People now protect the narwhals, but the climate and industrialization are a threat to their environment. They are still to this day one of the most unknown creatures in the Arctic Ocean. Are there such things as narwhals? Absolutely. They are live animals. However, due to centuries of legend and lore, they continue to have the feel of a legend.